Hey everybody, welcome back to Jay's for Down the Football Podcast. I'm your host Jay Gay, here to bring you the latest headlines, topics, and news here in the football world. Today I'm joined by Rusty Byrd, who's the co-host of the Kirk and Byrd Show. Great sports show. You guys should check them out. Thank you, man, for coming on and talking some draft with us, Rusty.
Oh yeah, Jay. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. I love what you're doing, and you're right. I loved your preview of the draft, and I want to check out how you did with your top 12 picks. We'll get into that. I want to see how you did. I know you did right with number one, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Before we get started, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. We're there. Have plenty of content going back all the way from like week 7 of the season. So we're going to continue to keep this going on towards the training camp going into the 2022 season, which will be here in a couple months. So for the NFL, so we're getting closer as we progress through these last couple months here in the off season. So, Rusty, the draft was very interesting to say the least. A lot of people went early, maybe than we expected them to go, or later than we expected them to go with someone in particular. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But before we get into the depth of it, man, what is your overall opinion on the draft? Like how it all played out? What's your thoughts on it, man?
Okay, so a couple of my major takeaways are this. One, we did a big flip from last year with the quarterbacks, but we took 5 in the first round. And this year we took 1, and he held out to the 20, and he lasted until the 20th pick. But I think it was a good pick by the Steelers. Yeah. I thought they got great value. And I think it's good for Trubisky to have some competition in camp. That being said, there was 1 pick in the first round, and then we don't get any others until the 3rd round. And I was absolutely shocked that Malik Willis,
yes,
So, I don't know if that was what you were going to point out.
Oh, it was, but Malik Willis.
So we don't have to go there now, but that was a big takeaway. Malik, he's right here. I'm in the state of Virginia. He was at Liberty, and he did work there after transferring, from an SEC school. And then I think another takeaway when we talk about quarterbacks for me was that Sam Howell dropped so low, into like if he had come out last year, or if he, based on his preseason projections, and it shows how, maybe it's a reflect they weren't favorable on his season, or it's just maybe overall. We can talk more about it, but just the view of quarterbacks and taking them so high. And then the last, I have a few takeaways, but the last other overarching 2 things I have is 1, no running backs in the first round. Yeah.
Pretty weird.
Those days look like they're going away. And so to me, that point, I kind of noticed that, and I joke my Cowboy friends about that, like when Ezekiel Elliott, not only when they drafted him early, and he was a great player, but when they re-upped him for so much money, and it is hard for running backs to stay healthy and just continue their production levels. And then the last thing was just that what we used to value in running backs, now the receivers, like receivers are gold, and like how many have gone in the first couple of rounds. So that's my big takeaway. What about you?
Well, like you said, man, the quarterbacks, it going so late was really a shocker to me. Now, obviously I knew, months before that this wasn't going to be a quarterback heavy draft. We all knew that. It's more going to be oriented towards defense and, wide receivers, that type of deal. So I didn't expect the quarterbacks to be popping out in the first few picks like they have been in previous years. But I thought, some would go a little bit sooner than they did. I thought some teams reached a little bit on some of their picks. It was one of those things where this was a lot of trades too. A lot of teams were trading up, and trading back. So it was very interesting. Jameson Williams, wide receiver from Alabama, electric guy. He's awesome. He went to the Detroit Lions, who the Minnesota Vikings, I believe, traded their pick to the Lions, so the Lions could pick Williams. So that's pretty cool, interesting to find out. But overall, man, I just thought it was a a very strange draft. I thought, the receivers obviously were very important. Like we saw a lot of them being picked early. Garrett Wilson going to the Jets. Chris Olave going to the Saints. A lot of Ohio State guys were being drafted.
Ohio
right?
State. I mean, so hold on. Ohio State's got two guys. What they go 10, 11? But
Yeah.
So and I know Alabama did it last year, but like, so that makes you wonder, like, and then they okay, I'm getting a little frustrated because I'm going, does that mean Ohio State, which has produced a lot of great quarterbacks, is it because they have so much great talent at receiver and all around, or are and because their QBs aren't really hitting at the next level? Yeah. Joe Burrow transferred out of there.
Yeah,
look what he did. Okay, but yeah, that's a lot of talent. Clearly, if they're being drafted that high in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I want to touch on the Ohio State quarterback situation for a second here. Yeah, it's been a theme, over the last decade or so. I can't really remember the last. Rest in peace to Dwayne Haskins, of course. Obviously his presence will be ultimately missed. Condolences to his family. They lost a great man, but yeah, he was the last Ohio State quarterback I remember to be drafted. If I'm correct, I believe so. Yeah, Dwayne Haskins. Before that, they haven't really been productive in the league. So I guess it's just a receiver and running back school, I guess. But they were popping them out, man. Like I say, Garrett Wilson, great player. He went to the Jets, which is a big pickup for them because they needed a receiver, sorely. Along with other things. But the Saints also picking Chris Olave, his teammate, on the very next pick at 11. So I just thought, it was very interesting to see, especially how fast these picks were coming in. It's like these teams knew what they were going to go with. So you didn't see like the full time that was allotted to the teams that, that were used for them to draft the players. They were popping them out quick. The pick was already in before, so.
And I can't remember his name now, but was it? So Ohio State had these two guys, and then they lost the guy that went to Alabama. What's his name?
Williams, Jameson Williams.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, right.
Yeah.
So he was at Ohio State. Good gracious, that's some talent, Meanwhile, I would like Virginia Tech just to get one. Are you a big Georgia fan?
Oh no. Yeah, now I'm in Atlanta, but I am all Crimson Tide, man. I rep Alabama. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I
very interesting.
I rep the Crimson Tide. 18 national championships. We're pushing for 19 next year. Georgia got one last year. Kudos to them, but it's not being 18.
like I said, my son, you need to meet my son, Cameron. His favorite team is Alabama because a good friend of ours, a kid that from our area, Deshaun Hand, played there.
Yeah,
and
he was
number one. He was the number one player in the country at Woodbridge High School, and he was a mentor to my son. So when looking up to Deshaun so much, he became an Alabama fan, and then we can't get him off of it. So
yeah, it's the culture too. It's just all about winning.
Oh yeah,
they and how it's just you want, and this and these. This is why Alabama sends a lot of players to the league every year because Saban prepares these guys, not just on the field but some of them off the field as well. He instills that work hard mentality into those guys, and just leaves it to them. Some of them go on to the draft, be successful, as we know. But just a little side note right there. Like I said, man, it was a lot of, reaching, I believe, in this draft. A lot of teams picked, like, it was like the Packers. We all thought they were going to take I just don't understand, man. what teams do you believe came out of this draft successful?
Okay. So just so you know, I grew up as a kid in the 70s, so I like the Steelers.
Okay.
But then I thought they were too cheap, and they didn't keep all of my favorite players from the 70s and early 80s. but I always loved Walter Payton. So Walter Payton made me love the Bears. So my favorite team, the Bears, and I have to kind of stick with it, because I don't want to be jumping teams a lot. But so my team, the Bears, I was really thrilled last year when they picked up Justin Fields. You just mentioned we thought that Justin Fields is a Ohio State quarterback that we drafted.
Right. How did we forget about Justin Fields?
I know, but I don't think about. Yeah, you're right. But how did we forget? But he was at Georgia, so he wasn't there the whole time. But anyway, I think what I would say regarding the Packers and some of the surprises, like all these receivers going. So many going fast, and then the Packers still didn't get a receiver with their first pick. And then the receiver they did get is out of South Dakota State, which I don't know. It's just my thinking. Are they trying to send a message? Just because Trey Lance? No, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. What is it? No. So no, I know what it was. So they picked him up, but do you really know what he can do because he hasn't done it against on a higher stage of talent. Now he's a great player and that's a great program, but I just wonder. And again, they were folks that said they reached when they moved up to get him. I think so. I was going to say the Bears, being my favorite team. I was happy last year this time because of Justin Fields. Didn't have a great season, but I was not happy with the way we drafted this year. In terms of the Bears, what disappointed me was. We keep talking about building defense. So it seems like every year we're drafting cornerbacks. And so we again picked a defensive back, early. And I don't know. So that was a little frustrating. But the teams, a lot of people are talking about, and I agree, the Baltimore Ravens, I like what they did. They
had a great draft, man.
Very well. Yeah. And let me say, being a fan of the Steelers as a child. I mean, I also hated the Dallas Cowboys. And I live in the D.C. area. So I'll give Dallas credit when they do have a good draft, but I don't think they did that well this year.
No, not at all.
So, I wasn't really that impressed with what they did. And then I basically thought they did about average, gave them about a C. But the Washington Commanders. I thought they did.
They changed their name every year. I know.
So around here, I work in DC. A lot of us joking just call them the Commodores. And Lionel Richie should be their quarterback. But in our division, I thought the Lions actually did well. And then I'm always happy to see when the Patriots. I don't think the Patriots had a great draft. I give them a C-. And so those are the ones that kind of stuck out to me. And I do, again, I liked how Pittsburgh drafted.
Yeah, they did it. They had a great draft. And, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, they drafted Kenny Pickett at number 20. Okay. But we all thought, like we said earlier, the quarterbacks, we thought at least they would go within the top 15, top 10, if not the top 5. But, Pickett lasted all the way to 20, man. It was very interesting, and Kenny Pickett is a guy that I believe is going to fit that Steelers team. I think he fits what they're trying to do offensively, and like you said, it's going to be good competition for Trubisky. This is really something that can be won in training camp, and either one of them could be the starter week 1. I feel like, So it'll be a very interesting battle going on in Pittsburgh at that quarterback position. Yeah.
Now, what is your NFL team? Are you a Falcons?
I read the Falcons, man. I'm based in Atlanta, so I read the Falcons. I don't think I think we had an average draft. Personally, because
I thought they get about a B play. I thought they did okay. I wasn't.
Yeah. Now the reason I say this is because now they were at pick number 8, and we drafted Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. I hadn't heard too much about Drake London before, but after watching his tape and reviewing him, just nothing really jumps out to me. With Drake. He's a great, big body guy. And those are the type of guys Arthur Smith likes. Like we saw A.J. Brown in Tennessee. They brought Julio over there. They like those big body receivers that'll snag the ball and make sure they have the ball. possession receivers, as we like to call them. But I just don't think, I think he would have been there later if they wanted him. I think they really should have went with the offensive lineman or defensive lineman at that pick.
How do you feel about your quarterback situation going into this season?
I feel okay.
And picking up Desmond from Cincinnati.
We signed for those who don't know, the Falcons did sign former Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota to a 2-year deal back in free agency. I believe that was more just to be a bridge quarterback because the Falcons realistically will not be competing this year for anything. So this is more going to be an evaluation type of season for Atlanta, I believe, just to see the products that they have here in house and just where they stand. So I believe Marcus is going to come in and start. And if he doesn't do well, they might go to Desmond Ridder, who, out of Cincinnati, led his team to the college football playoff. Of course, they when you have to go up against a juggernaut like Alabama, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But, and I was surprised Desmond lasted that far.
Me too.
He is a great quarterback. I'm surprised he lasted that far in the draft.
But that's why I would say I thought Atlanta did well, just because again, I'm thinking, especially compared to last year, these teams, the Steelers, the Falcons, and even the Titans, when you're getting those quarterbacks at those low, that's value. That's value if you're able to. And this, again, quarterbacks aren't getting paid like they used to before. A couple of years ago when they kind of put a cap on some of those rookie contracts, but still, there's when you can. And so I'll give you an example. When you can get value at that position, so Kansas City was able to do that in 2017 when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson, Seattle was able to do that and build their defense with Russell Wilson. And so when you have those guys that are really good and you didn't have to spend that much on them, and you can then develop everything else, that works. And these guys, if they can get that rookie contract last long enough, then the other thing is, if they don't work out, you can pick another one in 2 years. It's not a big deal if it was some third round picks don't last. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. So just like I said, it's going to be a matter of evaluation. So I believe both Marcus and Desmond will get playing time this year. I truly believe that, just to see, they might throw in some different packages with them, however they might do it. Like I said, the Falcons won't be realistically competing in any sense. So this will be the year to kind of just assess and evaluate this roster right now. Obviously, a roster that has really turned the page, and they're heading into rebuild mode. They traded Matt Ryan away to the Colts, got back a 3rd-round pick, right? So it just, I think with the Falcons, I just thought that defense really should have been addressed more in the draft, because that's something. The Falcons over the last couple of years have ranked almost dead last in every defensive category in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you won't win ball games when you're 32nd out of 32 teams covering the pass. You won't win ball games.
That's right.
I thought that defense should have been addressed more. But overall, it was an okay draft.
Okay, good.
Yeah, definitely. So now with the top few picks, with Walker coming out of Georgia going to Jacksonville, Hutchinson going to the Lions, and Derek Stingley Jr., who ended up going to the Texans, which all I predicted on my mock draft. I had all of those correct.
You did? Oh, okay.
I did have those correct.
So you got the first five?
The first maybe 5 or so. The Panthers kind of shocked me a little bit when they took the offensive tackle out of NC State, Akeem Ekwonu, which was that was a good pickup for them, I believe. They now could they have gone quarterback? Possibly. But they believe in Sam Darnold. They also who did they draft? They did draft a quarterback, didn't they? Late in the draft.
No, they drafted. Oh my goodness, hold on. They're the ones that picked up. Golly, I don't know. I
can't remember the kid's name.
Yeah.
They did pick up a quarterback late in the draft.
They actually picked up Matt Corral.
Matt
So
Corral,
he was
yes.
the other
Yes.
third round pick. Yeah,
Ole
out of
Miss.
Mississippi.
Yep.
Yep, out of Mississippi.
And Matt Corral, I like Matt Corral. He's a good kid, and I think he's going to be eventually. I think he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. It's just a matter of he's just the development, and it's having to sit under Darnold for a year will help them. Carolina is there also trying to find their way in the NFC South right now. So we got the Falcons and the Panthers trying to find their way, along with the Saints. And the Saints, yes. Yeah. So in Tampa Bay, of course, they brought Tom Brady back. I believe the last time we spoke on the podcast, it was the playoffs, right? And we're thinking, well, maybe this might be Tom's last year, right? No, he came back. But what are your thoughts, man? Like on those top 3 or 4 guys, what with those teams, do you believe those were the right pickups for those teams from the Jags?
You talking about those top picks.
Yeah, those top picks.
Yeah, I thought that when it came to the overall draft, that teams basically helped themselves, and you did a great job, especially with those first 5 or so. I thought that. So this is the Trayvon Walker. Like you probably saw, even though you're a Bama fan, I'm sure you saw him a little bit more than I did.
He's a great player. Great player.
A great player. But some of the things I heard in terms of him, I think he's a lot of him is being built on his potential, because he did do some great things, but potentially I think he has more of an upside than Aiden Hutchinson. Because some people thought Hutchinson could go first, but I don't know how. I'm not saying Hutchinson's not a great player, but I don't know how to judge that when you're playing in the Big Ten. It's just not the same. When you're a defensive end and you're doing work in the SEC, I just think that's a different level.
Yeah.
I just think it's a different level. The people you're going against that are blocking you are just as athletic. It's not just big fat guys anymore. They're just as athletic as you are. A lot of those linemen in the SEC were former tight ends or just, they just bulked up a little bit. So they're athletes, man. And then Stingley, I thought that, he's a great player. And I guess that's one of many things that the Texans need. But Thibodeau, it's funny. I remember Thibodeau actually in high school, and I was just looking back at what I remember him being like on Future Stars of Tomorrow.
Right.
And I guess he really did live up to being a great player. But again, I'm going, I don't know. You're in the Pac-12. I don't know how legit you are. So I'm not saying he's not good, but I'm going. I always thought he was a little light in the butt, and I also kind of questioned how his straight up desire. And I'm not saying he doesn't love football, but I know he has other interesting things. So could he have made that same impact in the SEC? So that's just my question. Because I know, like Deshaun Hand was the best player in high school football.
Yeah.
And when he went to Alabama, I even remember saying, like, okay, Deshaun, there are guys that aren't ranked, but they're going to be at Alabama, and they just going to be bloodthirsty, hungry ballers, And so I'm not saying those other guys aren't good, but I'm just saying the SEC is no joke. And for Deshaun Hand to not be a full-time starter until his senior year just tells you. But all the guys in front of him were major first-round picks.
Yeah. And you mentioned the SEC and then, like the Big Ten or the Pac-12. And it's hard for these GMs that's what people don't understand about the draft. Like, it's hard to really assess these guys because you have to also look at the competition that they play. Like, for example, Malik Willis, great quarterback. I don't know how he lasted as long as he did. He ended up being picked by the Titans eventually. But he's got a cannon for an arm. Great, it's got a great upside, but it's just you have to also look at, okay, how will he fare against top defenses, like against the Bucks or, the Colts or great defenses, the Bears, for one, who always have a good defense every year, so you have to factor in these things, and different coverages are going to be thrown at you because these, so it's things you have to think about that, right? And you're not really seeing that much if you're in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the, wherever it might be, the ACC. So that's just some of the things I think about. I think that a few of those teams address big needs, especially the Texans, like you mentioned, because they after trading away Deshaun Watson, that was just a full, just the confirmation that they are in a rebuild. Like, I mean, officially, they sent him over to Cleveland. So now they turned the page and they picked Derek Stingley. The cornerback was a position of need for them. They addressed that, which I thought was good. The Jets also did it when they picked Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. He's long, good corner. Hadn't gave up a touchdown in his college career. So I think that's crazy. Also got to factor in competition as well. But I think Ahmad is going to be a great corner in this league. And going to the Jets, I think that's going to be like, he's going to be the star there. He got that swagger. He's going to bring that swagger to the locker room. So that's going to be good for the overall culture there. And the culture is a big thing that most people don't talk about. And some of these guys are going to help bring that culture to some of these teams, which is important. I believe so.
Yep.
So, but yeah, man, overall, I thought the draft was interesting. I thought, like you said, teams addressed some good needs, some reached a little bit, and it's just going to be a matter of how it all plays out over the next couple of years. But overall, man, I think it's going to be an interesting 2022 season.
No doubt.
Yeah. Almost heading into training camp soon, mandatory mini camp, and eventually the preseason and then the NFL season. So, but before we hop off the podcast, Rusty, I want to get your predictions, man. Like who? Well, I know it's really early, man, but as far as the 2022 season is concerned for the NFL, what teams do you think are going to make that next level, jump to that next level?
So, if there are teams, and let me just say, I don't know if it would be necessarily. Based on the draft, if they're going to make that leap, but I'm going to look at their whole off season. And so a big one to me would be the fact that Tampa Bay retained Tom Brady. I think that's huge. I think, again, we talked about like that division is the NFC South is kind of weak right now.
Very.
And so, I think with the coaching change, just again, I loved God, why can't I think of the Tampa Bay's coach that just retired?
Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians. I love Bruce Arians. Yeah, he was a Virginia Tech coach. I hope to get him on the show one day. But I think it's when you get maybe a new coach, but you still keep the core of your team together. They were right there this year. So I would look Tampa Bay. I think another thing is going to be interesting is Russell Wilson really going to have that impact on Denver? Is he going? Because that conference, that division rather, the AFC West is tough. It's tough when you got Kansas City. I think the Raiders are doing well, and the Chargers are coming on. So I just want to know, I look to see Denver doing a little, but I don't think Russell Wilson's going to make that big of a difference. And then I think the Jaguars can't do anything but go up. But I will say this. I have often said, and I've said it for the last 2 or 3, Trevor Lawrence was way overrated for years. I said that in college, and I don't think he's going to make that much. I said the same thing about Baker Mayfield, but that's another show. And I also think the Ravens. When I look, I think the Ravens just had an off year, but I look to see them come back and may be one of the stronger teams in the league.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of teams are going to be looking to make that jump next year. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But thank you, Rusty, for coming on the podcast today. Appreciate your intakes, man, on the draft.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Of course, man. It's always good talking with you guys. And make sure you guys check us out on YouTube, Jay's Sit Down Football Podcast. Find us for all the latest news going on, topics in the football world. I'll have more stuff coming out for you guys as we move closer and closer throughout the offseason, moving towards the 2022 NFL season. So make sure you guys are staying tuned for that. You guys also check out Rusty's show with his buddy Kirk Hilliard on YouTube, the Kirk and Byrd Show. Great stuff they put out there. Check them out, and we'll see you guys later.
All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy.
Yes, sir.